to join me. So Aaron should be up with us shortly. Good morning, Aaron.
Hey, Bradley, how you doing?
I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Very well.
Thanks for joining us. Firstly, just to set a bit of context, Aaron, you're a Paralympian, Team GB, wheelchair rugby. You've been in the UK's top 100 most influential people with a disability. You've had an incredible journey. But for those who don't know, and as I say, there will be a handful of people here that would have heard you speak before, and you spoke about some of your achievements to date. But for those who don't, if you could just take us back into in a very short time, take us back into where you are now.
Well, I'll just start this. These sort of meetings are a great leveler because normally you hear a lot about hidden disabilities in the media. I haven't got one of them. I've got the complete opposite normally. So yeah, I'm a bilateral lonely amputee, but you'd obviously never know. So I know a lot of you have heard my story, but really briefly then, I contracted meningococcal septicemia or meningitis type C when I was 15. Spent a year in hospital, had acute respiratory and renal failure, and I was very, very poorly for that year. But one of my things has always been that I've just always tried to be positive. It's really difficult, like at the moment with everything going on. I've just always tried to have that positive outlook, and I think you have to, really, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So from that moment, when was your first introduction into sport, into competing?
Okay, yeah. So I didn't have the traditional route into sport as lots of the Paralympians might have a similar story to mine. I started wheelchair racing to raise money for charity. Did local races, local 10K races, led me into doing the London Marathon, 2 London marathons. Second of which went quite well. I did it in 1 hour, 59 minutes. I was 4th UK male. And from there, I got headhunted into the GB wheelchair rugby team. So for those of you who haven't seen it, wheelchair rugby is the only full contact wheelchair sport where you're allowed to smash other people out of their wheelchair. So it's originally named Murder Ball. They struggled to get corporate sponsorship for a sport named Murder Ball, so they changed the name to wheelchair rugby. But it's that brutal.
Good stuff. You mentioned your work with charity, and I have to mention that you've raised £250,000 during your time for Meningitis Research Foundation. So congratulations for that, and I know you're continuing your work with that. Talking about the now, you were, when we spoke on the phone last week, you were saying you were preparing to be at your peak for Tokyo 2020. That's, for obvious reasons, been put on hold. What's it like as an athlete who was preparing, had their goal set for the last 2, 3, 4 years for this year and to competing? What's it like having to now delay that and restructure your whole routine?
Okay, that's a massive question. All right, so we had a big tournament in February called the Coordinations, and we were playing America, Australia and Canada in Leicester. I remember sitting in a meeting with my chief exec, and he's saying, we might not go to the test event in March because of everything that's kicking off around the world. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, nah, that'll never happen. We'll still go to the test event. But lo and behold, the test event got cancelled. And then when this all started, I was perhaps thinking, kind of just buried my head in the sand and thought, it's going to happen. It might be that we play behind closed doors, but they're never going to cancel the Olympics and the Paralympics. Who can imagine a world where that would happen? And lo and behold, it did. And look, sport isn't everything, is it? I know sometimes we think it is, but it isn't. It's just sport. And obviously it was the correct decision because of everything that's going on. But it was still really difficult for me to digest. My entire lifestyle was built around peaking at that moment in August. So everything that I was eating, the time I was spending with my family, my training. I mean, training to the point that I was kind of blacking out and, sorry, this isn't very pleasant, but throwing up on the treadmill at the university and things in my wheelchair. And for them just to say it's not happening it was a big shock. I mean, I hadn't drunk anything since January. I've been completely dry, and I was going to for the whole year. Now, for the record, I've drunk loads. You'll be pleased with me. I've got over a year now, so I'm okay. But it was, it was really, really difficult. As an athlete, you can't stay completely fit all the time. You have to peak and trough. So I was working to peak at that exact moment. For them to say, it's not happening, it was tough to adjust my mindset. And not only was I, peaking at that moment, everything that was building to that, I'm now at a point where I've got a 6 and an 8-year-old and I'm trying to teach Key Stage 1 English and maths. So it's been tough.
I think a few parents at the event here can relate to that. You mentioned mindset there, Aaron, and I think a lot of parallels to what you've gone through can be applied, and certainly principles that you've applied in your life people can take away and apply in their life in terms of overcoming adversity, whether that be business, whether that be personal. When you were going through those perhaps dark times, what was the best thing that you did to get you through those periods?
Well, I think the thing I'll say about that is when you're in the middle of something, it is incredibly tough. When I was laid in that hospital bed after my amputations, and having a lot of pain, skin graft and dressing changes and things, it was really difficult. I tried to keep a positive mindset. It was tough. I wish I could pick myself up now, go back and teach and speak to that teenager and say, hey, do you know what? It does work out in the end. And I think that's what we need to keep at the forefront of our mind. There's going to be a point where this is going to change and things will go back to normal. It might not look exactly the same. But, we will come through this. I think it's important for you to do it in your own way. Now, I'll be honest, when this all kicked off, I hid. I buried my head in the sand and I did quite a lot of DIY at home. And that was kind of my way of coping. I thought, I don't normally get a lot of time to do this. And I did. And I painted things and I just took my time. So you've got to just do it in your own way. Don't get too stressed with what you should be doing now. I mean, do the right things and make positive choices, of course. But everybody's going to do this in their own way. Some people are just going to chat in front of the telly. Obviously, we're talking to lots of motivated people on this call. They're maybe bearing their head into their work, etc. But just do it in your own way and try not to stress too much.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to make a point that if anyone has any questions for Aaron, we've got another 5-10 minutes on this. Feel free to drop them in the Q&A section on the right-hand side. I've seen a couple come in already, which we'll get to Aaron for sure. And Aaron has said to me that don't be afraid to ask him absolutely anything. And a question that we almost touched on over a call was, would you change anything in your journey, sort of your approach to things, and what have you learned really from overcoming such adversity?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think, if I look back, this is probably the worst and best thing that ever happened to me. Worst for obvious reasons, but best because it gave me a completely different outlook on life. It made me really motivated that I perhaps wasn't before. And, if I could have my legs back, I wouldn't, because, I've now got a beautiful young family. I play international sport for the country. And I think we could probably relate that to a lot of people's businesses. If you can get through this and you can survive in the next few months, I mean, it doesn't really get much worse, does it? I mean, it's a bit easy just to say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It's probably not appropriate at this time. But if your business can get through this and you can come out the other side, what can't you get through, really? I think that's a positive people to take away.
And I mean, lastly, we've got a couple of questions that we'll get to, Aaron, but how have you adapted? I know you've got a lot that you do in your life, and in terms of not just competing professionally, but your charity work, your speaking. How have you had to adapt those, particularly the speaking, and you're taking on a lot of online things like this, but how have you had to adapt your whole life, and how are you sort of having to adapt that, the other side of this, and plan for that?
Okay, so personally, I mean, I'm a professional speaker. This is what I do. I work a lot with organisations and in schools, all been cancelled. So what I've done is really just thought, where can I help people? And that's all I'm trying to do at the moment. I'm just trying to speak to people and help them as much as I can. And I think that's important at this time. We should try and be there for each other. And if we are, we're all going to come through this stronger, and it's potentially going to help our businesses in the long run. In terms of our sport, I know my chief exec is coming up with a few different scenarios. So we've got new schedules coming out. If we are looking to go back August and we're able to train together as a team, then we're looking at that scenario. If it's not happening till October, then we've got a schedule for that as well. If we're not going to kick off till next year, then we've got another schedule for that. If it doesn't kick off at the end of this year, I'm not sure what will happen in terms of the Paralympics going forwards. But yeah, so we're just trying to put things in place to help us at this time.
Sure. And lastly, from me, Aaron, before I get to the question, from a team perspective, you compete in a team. what have you guys done to, because there's a lot of businesses in here that have teams that are now remote and all over the place. So how have you guys as a team that are so close knit and compete in a professional sport, staying together, communicating? Is there anything that people can take away from how professional sports are still sort of engaging with one another internally?
Well, we're doing pretty much exactly what you're all doing. We're still having online meetings and we're still having discussions. I've got WhatsApp groups that are firing all the time. I think I speak to my coach more now than I did before this happened. But we're just lucky with the technology that we have, aren't we? And that's the way that we're keeping together. I mean, lots of my teammates would be classed to be in the vulnerable category, so they literally can't leave their house. Also having team time as well, where we're just doing quizzes and having a bit of a laugh. But, you know, if someone's birthday, it's just full up with good luck messages. We're just trying to keep in touch with each other, particularly those guys and girls that just even can't leave the house at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely right. It's got a couple of questions here. Do you find it better to have big long-term goals or lots of little short-term ones?
Oh, that's a great question. Normally, non-corona time, big, dirty, stinking goals. Smart targets. Why do you want to make anything that's specific, measurable, achievable, realistic? That is a rubbish goal. Big, dirty, stinking goals. There's a really great speaker called David Heiner who speaks about that. Fantastic if anyone wants to look him up. At the moment, I'd probably keep them shorter and just take it day to day. You know, we all have those days where we're feeling down about this. I think that's completely normal. I think if you set yourself a big goal at this time, perhaps you'll slip up because of that. But then again, everyone's different. So completely contradicting myself here. But for me personally, at this time, short goals, you know, keeping active, staying fit, because who knows what's around the corner. But normal, big, dirty, stinking goals.
Good stuff. Good stuff. How do you balance the tough training with rest, regeneration, and even mindfulness?
Yeah, it's become a lot easier. Normally it's tough because I have to work as well. We're unfunded as a team. So I always try and blank out. I look at my schedule and look at my my workload. I know that I'm really busy. So I'll just schedule down days. I mean, I've got a young family, so we're still doing the school runs and I still have to pick up the kids from school. But put blocks of time in your diary when you're not doing anything. Because if you don't, you'll crash and burn. And that's for anyone in business or an elite athlete. You need to have that downtime when you can. So I know it's not tough when you got to earn the pennies.
There's a lot of talk about mental health, and rightly so. And I think that there'll be a lot of support and a lot of good that comes from that. In your perspective, and from what you've seen in Paralympic sport, what's the mental health support out there for you guys? Do you do anything to keep your mind healthy in that respect?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's just staying in touch with each other. I think, you know, everyone on my team at some point has been through some sort of adversity. So we're kind of used to coping in challenging times. That doesn't mean that we're not all still finding it tough. I think you got to look at who your support network is. So for me, you know, this year I was in situations where I was working out strategies where I'd be able to speak to my kids and my wife, because I don't like being away from them, to being with them all the time. So I'm trying to enjoy that. And they're my support network. So who are the people around you who you trust and feel comfortable with? You know, and you can be yourself around, not kind of with your business head on. You can be, you know, really you, and chat to them, you know, take some time, call a friend. Particularly us fellas, we don't tend to do that as much, but I've chatted to a couple of my mates and I find an hour's passed and I've had a great time. You know, we tend not to do that, so make sure you do.
Good stuff. I know you do the public speaking professionally. You're very good at it, and I haven't even mentioned, for those of you who didn't know, and you are the first British disabled person to mount Kilimanjaro, to reach the summit of Kilimanjaro unassisted, and you told the story of that brilliantly a couple of hours ago. Someone's asked, what advice would you give to those who maybe are not as confident speaking publicly?
Okay, people love stories. If you can tell a story, worst thing, when I've seen people bomb as speakers, it's normally because they've got loads of statistics or information on a PowerPoint to show. People love stories and will remember stories. So if you can get up there and bring your slides to life by just telling a story, and I'm lucky I've got some interesting stories, then I think that's make it much easier, and will engage the audience much more. People like storytelling, so if you can do that, definitely do.
Absolutely, and every business has their own story, don't they? So it's something that people within this school can implement, and whether that's on their website, even if they're not even speaking publicly themselves.
And
Aaron,
that one shock people as well. So you don't have to go do everything in chronological order. You know, start halfway through the story when something's gone really massively wrong, or you've had huge success, and then perhaps work your way back. You know, keep people guessing. That's another really good tip.
Sure. Two questions I'm going to sort of combine into one. Who inspires you, or who is your hero and why?
I get asked who inspires me in sport. You know, if I've got any role models, and rather than having role models, I've got people that I'm really thankful for. So a lot of you probably know Tanni Grey-Thompson. When I first became a wheelchair racer, you know, I stayed at her house, and her husband taught me how to be a wheelchair racer. My dad now is like my hero. He still fixes my wheelchair when I break it and comes out training with me, drives me to tournaments so I can sleep in the car on the way home. So, you know, my dad, my network that's around me of people who help me, they're my real heroes.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got last couple. Anders has written in, what's harder, training to be at the peak for an Olympics or homeschooling the kids?
Oh, God, homeschooling the kids. I can keep on the treadmill all day, but yeah, trying to teach Key Stage 1 English and maths, I haven't got a clue. And it's just the intensity. I can't get away from them. They're everywhere.
I'm sure, again, a lot of people can agree. Last couple, any top tips on motivating yourself to do exercise at this point in time?
Do it. Even I'm struggling. You've got to start. Don't make an excuse. Just start doing it. Doesn't matter what you're wearing. Doesn't matter how you do it. Doesn't matter how rubbish the YouTube video you're following is. Just do something, and you kind of get the bug for it. It's one of the things that's really easy not to do if you don't have to. Because I kind of don't have to as much at the moment. Even I'm finding excuses, and you know, you just got to make you do it. As soon as you start, you'll enjoy it.
Good man, good man. Aaron, I'm going to let you get on now. We've more or less come to the end of it, and I know you've got to get away as you've got another meeting after this. But I really appreciate your time and sharing some of your stories, some of your insights. It's something that people not necessarily hear on a day-to-day, especially with so much going on. So really appreciate you spending time with us, and yeah, we'll speak to you again very soon, Aaron. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot, Bradley. Thank you. Cheers.
Nice one. Good stuff. I'll just take you off the stage. Good man. Thanks, Aaron. Great. Thank you again to Aaron. And